Good morning, friends from Melbourne. This video is specifically intended for Indians or persons of Indian origin, particularly the ones who have come recently, the first generation from India. I'm referring to those who actually experienced life in India and have not just been born here or abroad. They've actually understood how hard life is in India, and to those who've actually left India in search of better opportunities and arrived in Melbourne. My name is Sanjeev Saplok. I joined the Indian Administrative Service in 1982. Currently, my batchmates are, as you might well know, holding some of the most senior positions in India. I was at the rank of the Commissioner or Joint Secretary at the Government of India level in 2001. In January 2001, when I resigned from the Indian Administrative Service. The reason was that I found that it is impossible to operate in an honest and an effective manner within the civil service of India. And thereafter I had left India and arrived in Australia, where I had already done some studies in the past, and I was interested in learning some more about how the government system works here. I was fortunate enough to get a job in the Victorian Workcover Authority in Melbourne. Many of you know that that's the OHS regulator of Victoria, the largest single regulator in Victoria. I learned a lot about how the system works here, how regulation actually works in practice, and it was a very useful experience. I had started working on reforms for India through the non-bureaucratic process, through the political process, in 1998. Well, I was still in the civil service, but I was doing some studies in the USA. At that time, it struck me, and I won't go into details, that India actually cannot be improved from within. And so this was a project I took up in 1998 and experimented in 1999 or /2000 with a few people in India. That did not go anywhere, so I decided that I better continue this project elsewhere. And so that's why I'm in Australia and I'm in Melbourne. And this video is addressed to you. In Melbourne, I have worked in the government or government agencies for the last 16 or 18 years now, almost 18 years, actually more than 18 years now, I think. 2001 I joined, so that's 17 years. More than 17 years I've worked in either Victorian Workcover Authority or later in the Department of Treasury and Finance, where I'm actually I'm an advisor in economic policy. Earlier, I was looking after some red tape reduction program when I started my career there in Treasury and some other things. Won't go into details now. The point I was going to make here is that I'm here talking to you because I run this Facebook page, Indians for Melbourne, which I started many years ago. My interest was to find people who migrated to Melbourne who are interested in India's future. I think I organized a meeting. A few people did come at one stage. That didn't go anywhere far. What I'm actually looking for now is communicating the reason why I think this Facebook page exists, the reason why we Indians, persons of Indian origin in Melbourne, should actually pay attention to what's going on in India, not take for granted whatever the news are telling us. We should realize that if we have come to Melbourne, and for most of you this is actually an economic opportunity rather than any other reason, you've come here because you could not succeed in India at the level that you're able to succeed in Melbourne. You also come here because it's a very clean place. There's a complete honesty as far as the bureaucracy is concerned, the police, etc. You very rarely will come across, almost impossible, that anybody in a common man will come across corruption in these kind of government services, although you might find some inefficiency here and there. The point that I was suggesting is that we have a lot of Indians outside India have a feeling that India is somehow making some progress. But when they go back every time, they find that nothing has really changed in their own place. Yes, the airport has now improved, and of course we've got the private sector involvement. We've got some private sector participation in the roads and highways, and so that's getting better. But you notice that wherever the private has actually helped and participated, that India is flourishing, India is doing well. But wherever the government exists and still has a role, we've had most deplorable and depressing performance. I'll also put out a video about the reality, the current reality, just taken a few days ago in one of the villages in UP, in Bhadohi district. This is part of India. India has not changed at the grassroots. People are still as desperately poor as before, and the corruption and the nightmares that they go through are absolutely the same as they were 70 years ago. So my question is to you friends here, should we assemble and have a chat about this? I've got some thoughts. I'm the only person in the whole history of India, and I'm not joking here, right? This is a very serious point to make. I mean, the only person in the entire history of India to have not only fully understood the Indian bureaucratic and political system, because I've worked from within, but I've also actually worked for a good portion of my life. In fact, probably equal portion now in India, Indian civil service and the Australian or Victorian public service. And I've understood from within how the systems are dramatically different. Now, this is something that's not known to almost anybody else. You would, who are listening to me, are most likely a professional. You're probably a doctor or an engineer, or some other professional who've come to Australia or Melbourne because you've got some better opportunity here. But you've never worked in government in India, or if you have, it's only been on the superficial, on the margins, not directly reporting to political masters. And actually experiencing them on a daily basis, the chief ministers of your state and the corrupt gundas that actually run India, or your colleagues who are completely arrogant and ignorant at the same time. You've not experienced that directly, because I don't know of any other IS officer who's got the same experience that I have, and has actually worked in a top, world-class governance system in any part of the world. Now, this experience has been buttressed with PhD studies in USA and other studies in Australia. But also, more importantly, because I do policy advice, I actually look at the real mechanisms of how policy works here. So I've written a bit about that here and there, book articles in terms of India and a few other things. The main thing is that I have helped found India's only liberal political party, the Swarn Bharat Party, the party of the Sone Ki Chidiya, the Golden India. Now, this particular party, I believe, is the only party with the answers for India's deplorable condition. If you are really interested in improving the life of your family, relatives, and others who are left behind in India, please get in touch with me, and we should meet, because this party now is starting to take some real steps forward. We activated it in around early 2016. After, and I won't go to the history of this particular party's origin, it's been a very long journey for me. But at this point in time now, we are really activating, and we're moving to 2019. For 2019, we are putting out candidates to contest elections, and it will be really helpful if some of you who have Indian citizenship start directly contributing to the growth of this political party, which is going to oppose all the bad ideas. And by the way, Modi has got absolutely no idea of governance. Let me assure you that. He may have been a chief minister of Gujarat, but that didn't teach him anything at all. He travels all over the world, including to Singapore now, but he doesn't understand what Lee Kuan Yew ever said. We have people like Rahul Gandhi who are absolute dimwits, and effectively, I wouldn't know. I mean, they really are intellectually deficient. Okay, let's just say that. I won't say moron, but pretty close to that. Now, these kind of people are there because of the dynasty politics that runs in India, and I absolutely reject that politics. In addition to the fact that Congress is an ultra-corrupt political party. I've seen that firsthand. They are totally corrupt. By the way, BJP is not less corrupt, let me assure you that. And now the third party which people tell me is doing well is Aam Aadmi Party. I can assure you once again that Arvind Kejriwal is an absolute nincompoop. He may speak well here and there, but he doesn't understand anything. His ideas of policy are absolutely in shambles. He and his entire team are completely socialist. All these parties are socialist parties. They are desperately socialist parties. They have no idea of governance. They don't understand economics. They don't understand incentives. And so what we are starting here in India is a complete revolution. It's taking India to the future where India will be better than Australia. Now, this is my commitment to you. This is my commitment to India. We will make India much better than Melbourne. I know the deficiencies of Melbourne. I work in the policy space. There is a lot of things here that are not happening in the way they should. And that's the kind of thing that I bring to the table. Not only how to radically reform India, but how to take it much better than anywhere else in the West. Now, that is a thing worth doing. And I'm here to talk to you, to invite you to get in touch with me, and so we can talk about this in more detail and work out the next steps. Please contact me at my email ID, that is sabhlok@gmail.com, sabhlok@gmail.com, and we'll work out the next steps. Thank you very much.